Hello, investors. This is Todd Thomas, Associate Portfolio Manager with Revere Asset Management. Today is Saturday, September 13th. The time is 11:17 a.m. Coming to you from Boca Raton, Florida, to bring you the Revere Roundup Weekend Walkthrough. State of the market. We changed back to the four coveted green arrows in our week after the leaders were able to overcome the 50-day moving average midweek. Very strong action out of the post-file 3-day leaders. As you recall, many of those last week or the week before last had failed the 50-day moving average. But as we'll show in the chart analysis section, we're able to hold up on the 65-day exponential moving average. Overall, short-term, medium-term, and long-term, all the indexes are trending nicely above the 21, the 50, and 200-day moving average. So what happened last week? Well, rebound in the follow-through day leaders and lower interest rates lead to a broad rally, especially in the Mag 7 plus Netflix and the Big 8, which was up 2.08%. Tesla being the standout in the Big 8 this week. The RG8 up 1.83%. That's the Revere Growth Composite, which is a series of Revere Growth ETFs that we average. The S&P 500 was up 1.59% on the strength in the mega caps. RSP only up 0.28. Q's up 1.84%, leading on the week. And the equal weights up 0.95. So you can see the equal weights have underperformed a little here recently. Dow up 0.95, mid caps down 0.44. And the Russell, which has been leading over the past few weeks, was up 0.25%. 60/40 up 1.11%. GROTECTION 1.8%. And TurboTection with a whopping 6.58%, with gains coming from everything from their crypto holdings, Bloom Energy, A-Lab, you name it. I think everything they have. Oh, they took a nice position in Tempest AI this week, and that exploded. So Turbo right now is definitely reaping the benefits of this strong market action. So what happened last week? Well, broad strength again with the S&P, the NAS, and the Dow hitting highs. Small cap set a 9-month high. The 10-year briefly fell below 4% on Thursday on the economic numbers, and Oracle came out with just a whopping shock, and it gapped open 41%, or it closed up 41% on the day on Wednesday on a surprise $455 billion backlog in RPOs, which stands for Remaining Performance Obligations. And that is for the Oracle Cloud. And that includes a $300 billion backlog from OpenAI with the expectations of $500 billion. So they expect RPOs to grow up to $500 billion over the next few months. A lot of people are questioning OpenAI's ability to fund this $300 billion commitment. Again, it's a 5-year commitment starting in 2027. Whether they can meet that or not, the evidence is in. Oracle's got a massive backlog, and they're becoming a major player with their Oracle Cloud for the AI complex. Nebus also had good news on Tuesday, where they got a $19.4 billion deal with Microsoft, which set that stock up on the week. So again, you can see just still the data center and AI still is leading this market. News out on Friday that Micron halted memory pricing amidst a supply crunch. They're also eyeing major DRAM and NAND hikes on this shortage. So Micron broke out nicely this week, which that's been on our weekly review for the last several weeks. A stalling labor market and benign inflation reports are now cementing the odds of a 75 basis point in cuts this year, with the first coming on Wednesday at the FOMC meeting. So we're likely to get a 25 basis point cut on Wednesday with 2 more potential cuts this year. Furthermore, the markets are now starting to price in a 2026 Fed funds rate cut of 2.95. So they're thinking the Fed funds rate is going to drop to 2.95% by the end of 2026 from the current 4.25 to 4. Actually, that should be 4.5, not 4.75. And finally, a strong week for Tesla, Palantir, Oracle, NVIDIA, Avgo, Micron, and Lam Research. Top movers on the week. INOD, which I put on the watch list for the week, 7 straight up days where that stock rallied over 60%, I believe. So last week, and it started the week before on no particular news. So huge volume all 7 of those days. So we're going to take a look at that stock. IREN, which TurboTection and Toddzilla have owned and currently own, up 29.9%. A-Lab, which Turbo and Toddzilla own, up 20%. Micron, unfortunately, did not buy that, even though it was on the watch list, up 19% on the week. Then some blockchain up 19.6. AppLovin added to the S&P last week, up 18.7. Dave coming back to life. Rocket Lab with a beautiful day on Friday. American Semiconductor up 15.2%. Rambus up 15%. So down on the week, not too much. Some biotechs took a breather. ANET was down 2.4% on the week. They actually had an investor day on Friday, and basically they guided fiscal 26 revenues, and they were a little bit conservative. Okay, so the stock sold off pretty rapidly on Friday. Earnings next week, very little. Cracker Barrel been in the news here. We're going to see what's going on there. Darden Restaurants, FedEx, and Lennar. So we'll get to see what Lennar is saying about housing. On the economic numbers, next week we got the Empire State Manufacturing, retail sales, industrial production and capacity utilization on Tuesday. We got housing starts and building permits, as well as the FOMC meeting and rate decision, where they'll release their 25 basis point decision at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. And the new target is 4 to 4.25, from 4.25 to 4.5. Then we have the Philly Fed, as well as some natural gas inventory numbers. That is it. So let's go to the charts and the inter-asset correlation on the week. Starting with the S&P 500 up 1.59%. Again, another week of new all-time closing high. Backed off a little bit on Friday, but turned around at that 4,600 level. Let's go back here. 6,600. RSP only up 0.28%. Trying to gain some traction through this old high going back to November, 188.16. Not making too much progress, as still the big stocks are leading the charge. Q's up 1.84%. Equal weight up 0.95%. The Dow up 0.95%. So all these index trending nicely. The mid cap down on the week. Russell 2000, which had several big up weeks here, kind of settled down this week, only up 0.25%. Closing in on that 2466 level, though, which I anticipated to potentially take a shot at. VIX below 15 still, which is quite bullish. Dollar down slightly on the week. Gold up 1.3%. Gold miners up 5.14%. Silver up 3.04%. Again, multi-year highs, not all-time highs, but multi-year highs. And Bitcoin resurged this week. Overtook the 50-day moving average after this failed breakout and reversal back below the 50-day. So very strong action out of the crypto complex this week. Let's look at Ethereum as well. Ethereum was up 7.9%. That's the big leader in the cryptos right now, gap and a run on Friday. So again, TurboTection with a big holding in the crypto area. Don and GROTECTION also has some Ethereum, as well as, I believe, not Bitcoin at the time, but another crypto. Let's see here. So now we have total bond market index was up 0.4% as rates declined. TLT was also up 1.5%. That's a longer term bond price index. 30-year yields 4.67%. So backing off nicely from that 5% level and that 5.152% level. You can see it broke through all the averages this week as the job numbers continue to look pretty weak. Incidentally, jobless claims jumped 27,000 to a 4-year high of 263,000. Overall, the department or the Bureau of Labor Statistics revised down payroll gains for the year through March by 911,000, cutting average monthly growth to 73,000 from 149,000. So big downward revision in those job gains and payroll numbers this week. So that's why bonds rallied and yields collapsed this week. Intraday, this is the 10-year. On Thursday, we dropped slightly below 4 and then rallied a little bit in yields to close at 4.06%. So again, bullish for stocks. Mag 7 up 2.8%. Let's go through the names. Apple down 2.3%. Amazon down 1.8%. Most of these names were down this week. Microsoft was up 3%. Meta up slightly. Nvidia had a big week, up 6.42%. And this is where I wanted to show you the 65-day exponential moving average that we talked about in Friday's podcast. Oops, let's get that to the 65. We're splitting hairs here, but let's apply those changes. And you can see NVIDIA held up right on that 65-day moving average after breaking through. We also talked about Robinhood, which hammered off of that 65-day exponential moving average the week before last, as well as GEV. Did a couple tests and rallies off of that 65 before bouncing this week on the ORCL numbers. So, and finally, Palantir. We talked about Palantir, which also had an undercut of that 65. This got a little bit aggressive here, but it held ultimately, recovered that 50-day moving average. So, real quick, I'm going to change those moving averages back to the 8-day exponential, which is what we like to use for our really short-term moving average. Now, let's look at Google on the week. So NVIDIA, nice recovery this week, primarily on those ORCL numbers. Google extended its gains to new all-time highs of 2.47%, and Netflix down 4.4%. The big winner on the week was Tesla. Congratulations to GROTECTION and ROBOTECTION, which had been taking positions into this. Ted's gone into some good detail about the volume compression pattern that's been happening in Tesla. Notice how each high to low range has been contracting. This is a Mark Minervini technique. And then finally you have this real tight and the breakout above that. That was your buy signal. Turbo took the position there. Don's been taking positions in here. Turbo's been taking positions on pullbacks. But now Don added to this into strength as it was a clear breakout. And that's a beautiful technical pattern. Incidentally, let's talk a little bit about what is driving Tesla. Ted set out a message to the team this morning. This is the beauty of our team. We're continually learning and sending information 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And Ted shared this today with us. They're seeing this is the highest level since February in Tesla's price. At an event in Las Vegas earlier this week, Tesla introduced its Megapack 3 battery unit alongside a large-scale system called Megablock. The Megablock integrates multiple Megapacks with power system components in a design intended to cut costs and speed up installation for utility projects. Production of Megapack 3 will begin in Houston later next year. So this launch comes as their energy unit has been gaining traction as it is. Revenue from energy generation and storage rose 18% year over year to $5.5 billion in the first half of fiscal 25. This offset an 18% decline in automotive revenue. So if everybody's looking at Tesla thinking that it's just about cars, yes, that's a big part of their business, but this energy unit is gaining big traction, already running at $5.5 billion for 6 months this year. with this new product being introduced, the Mega Pack, which will help store energy. And energy is a big play on this data center. The data centers are being limited by the amount of electricity. So if we can store solar, wind, and renewables, this can definitely help propel this. So there you go with Tesla. And that is it for the inter-asset correlation. Let's look real quickly at the industry ETFs on the week. K-Web with a beautiful breakout, led by Alibaba. Okay, we're all in Turbo and Todzilla and Alibaba. And this had a nice move here and a nice breakout. So the K-Web is the growth area of China. GDX, IBD 50 up 4% on the week. Definitely in a growth market, very strong. The IBD system is definitely shining in this type of market. China FXI up 4%. Semiconductor SMH broke out this week, and the IGV continued. Uranium with a new interweek high, but closed just shy of these highs back here in July. So uranium is definitely looking good. And XLK and technology. Going into the week ones, biotechs took a breather. Home construction backed off. Home construction down 2.5% on the week. And there was a company, and I forget the name of it, that reported this week. They are in the drainage area, and they guided lower and were down substantially. Core and Main, CNM. I believe the weakness in the housing group came from Core and Main's forecast on earnings on Tuesday. The stock was down 25%, and they cited weakness in the residential building area. So I believe if you look at the let's go down to the ITB. That drop here coincided with Core and Main. So there may have been some read through on that. I'm not sure. Home builders down 2%, UNG, and solar's taking a breather down 0.19%. So that was on Friday, down 5% on the week on solars. Now let's get into the main watch list. This is sorted by composite rating and relative strength as a secondary sort. And Credo leads the list, up 15%. And again, most of these big moves came on Oracle's numbers on Wednesday. So that just helped extend it. But extremely extended. Finally, ants starting to occur on Credo's chart. That's the Dave Ryan ants indicator. However, this is extremely extended right now. A-Lab, which we are all in, was up 20% this week. This was a big contributor to Turbo this week, as we both did some offensive selling into Thursday and Friday. Thursday for Turbo, on Friday for me, did some offensive selling there. But looks extremely good. Bloom Energy, up huge on the week, 17% on Oracle. Don't forget, Oracle signed a deal with Bloom back here that broke out the stock. And Oracle's going to be using their fuel cell designs. It's a modular fuel cell design that runs on natural gas and hydrogen. And again, that followed through on Oracle's numbers as they're building out a ton of data center capacity and need electricity. CLS down 0.37%. App 11 added the S&P on Friday the week before, up 18% on that S&P ad. HSAI, this is a Chinese name, up 7.85% on the week. It's a name we're watching here, and you can see how it came up to these old highs from 2023, got rejected and backed off on the week, which often happens. We talk about that, but it's still doing a pretty good job of riding that EMA with some very strong growth here. Like a Todzilla holding up another 9% on the week. Did some offensive selling into this week as it's getting extremely extended, but the stock has been a monster. Look at the volume here. SoFi up 3.7% to a new all-time closing high. Voodoo in China watching this as it trades basically a 3-week tight. WGS down 6.4% as several biotechs got hit this week. Comfort System broke out with a 6.7% gain. Obgo broke out again on Oracle's news after continuing the earnings gap from the week before. So Obgo thought to have gained OpenAI as a new multi-billion-dollar customer. So they're also benefiting from this OpenAI spend and custom chips. Also, don't forget they mentioned last week in their earnings report that they're taking market share from NVIDIA, as well as some of the others, AMD as well. Harman continues after its IPO breakout, up 2.9%. C Limited, up 2.3%. This is a Toddzilla and GROTECTION holding, looking very good. We bought this in the post-earnings gap pullback here. Came back, retested that breakout, held, and it's making new highs here. Gold's extended. CCJ just riding that 10-week moving average. I personally took a position in this week, but it didn't really follow through on the week. This is a pretty much one of the world's largest uranium producers. They produce 17% of all the uranium in the world, as well as refine. They have the top refining plant in Canada, but they also own 49% of Westinghouse. And Westinghouse is a leading builder of nuclear energy facilities. So not only are they making uranium, but they also own 49% of Westinghouse. So this is one to keep an eye on. It's in a big consolidation here. We had this nice shakeout down here below the 50-day moving average, recovery, failed breakout, shakeout, and now it's really just kind of trading along these moving averages. So it's a little wild right now, but again, strong numbers ahead, still some triple-digit earnings ahead, and we should see a long runway for nuclear. ANET talked about how on Friday they had an analyst conference and guidance was conservative, so got rejected from this all-time high breakout back into the 21-day moving average. Road broke out. This continued its breakout. Micron had a huge week here. This has been on our watch list for the last few weeks now, as it kind of rode this 50-day moving average and finally just started moving and extended here into this week. Beautiful breakout to new all-time highs. Here's a monthly chart. Ran the same thing, continuation up 15%. Again, fueled by, really didn't go on the day Oracle popped, but then just popped on Thursday, all out of nowhere. Pan American Silver continuing up 6% with the silver move. Amazon continuing up 2.6%. Just frozen rope here. Robinhood had a nice week up 13.6%. Again, this is an example that I showed where it held the 65. Okay, I took that 65-day exponential moving average, hammered right off of that, and then the S&P had. So, again, we're still all holding positions in Robinhood from back here, post-earnings, follow-through day, and at one point, that's 140% gain, up 150% gain on that position. Very nice. Palantir also held that 65-day exponential, up 11.9% on the week. American Superconductor popped this week up 15%. Again, this had a big earnings gap. Came back down, undercut that earnings gap day low. Came down to the 20-day and took back off. So this pretty strong action here as it's building this 20% base post-earnings gap. Sterling and infrastructure play up 9%. Sienna continuing up 12.5%. This is that fiber optic group, folks. Top stocks, Light, AAOI, and also, of course, Sienna. Light being a Toddzilla holding. Sienna reported here the week before last, gapped and has continued to run. That's definitely a change of character in this stock. So up another 12%. Incidentally, AAOI had a very nice week this week too. This is in that fiber group. This is yet to really emerge and is still in this base. However, it did have a nice pocket pivot on Wednesday here. Traded very big volume, as you can see. That was 111% increase in volume. So potentially actionable into this little pullback here. And this is another one too, like light. Look at the big turnaround in earnings. You had a year of declines, year of single digit. Now look at this sales growth as well as triple digit earnings growth. So that's notable. We've seen this in A-Lab. All right, look at the A-Lab triple digits. We've seen this in Credo, triple digits. Folks, you want to pay attention to these companies putting up triple digits. So I just screwed up my order here. Let me resort, please. I think we're good. Let me just find my place here. So yeah, there we go. Again, triple digits, big turnaround. This doesn't have the triple digits, but it is a change of character. Let's see here. Carvana with a down 1.93% week, riding that 10-week moving average. Hims and Hers reclaimed all the moving averages. This has been a wild stock, but had this kind of double bottom formation here on the 200. If you guys recall back here, Ted and Connor took an entry into this off of that 200-day right here. This stock has a tendency to do this. So it rides along this 200-day. It had an exact double bottom on this 200-day, followed through, and it's reclaimed the 50-day moving average on the week. So this is a big growth stock. Some nice earnings. Wild, though. Corning, just a monster, up another 8.2%. Leading producer of fiber optic as well as glass for the Apple iPhone. STNE up 5.7%. Thinner stock, but it's a new one that's showing up a lot on the list. Next tracker in the solar area down on the week, MDB. This is a Todzilla and a GROTECTION holding up 1.65%. Nice earnings follow through. We're going to watch this as it hopefully just continues to ride this ADMA. Very nice quarter in their database area the week before last. DoorDash down, took a position in this week. This is another name that bounced off that 65-day exponential moving average twice. You can't see that average, but definitely some follow through this week, and that looks pretty good. Lam Research with a big week. This is up 13.6%. Again, this is a big producer of equipment for the memory market. So that definitely had some nice follow through with some of these memory names. Google follow through. NASDAQ setting up in this little bit more than a flat base of 17%. NVIDIA, we talked about that. Data, this is one from the leaders list from the IBD that really is catching my eye, and I'm going to do some research on this. Had earnings back here in July. Broke the 200-day moving average, made new lows, and now 7 days straight of huge volume, straight off the bottom. That's notable, and I want to find out what's going on here. This is an AI company, and there's obviously something going on here, so I want to keep an eye on this. Seagate, just a little breather, only up 4% this week. Helmet Aerospace setting up in a nice little cut base. This is another electric semiconductor equipment maker up 14%. So you're seeing a lot of these equipment makers fire this week. That's definitely notable. IREN up another 29% this week. I took a position in this, and Turbo, we took a position right off of this pullback to the ADMA, and it just paid off right away. So we got instant feedback on this. Reddit up 5.95%. This is one of my largest positions. New all-time highs on the week, up 5.95%. Dave, this is a name that had a big move here post earnings in the spring. Consolidated, pulled back to the 20-week moving average. reclaim the 50-day moving average, and potentially one to watch with strong earnings growth. Kratos Defense up 6.7%. This drone area is a favorite of ours. Wayfair backed off. Cloudflare up 3.2%, breaking through those old highs. Your storage only up 3.8% this week. Shopify setting up in a base. Some of the biotechs again were down. This one down 5.11%. TKO up 4.35%. Talking about this one. UKHR after last week's gap settled in and do a tight inside week up 1.1%. This is a biotech. This is a name that isn't liquid enough for us, but it's a blue dot with a nice breakout in the aluminum, metal, and fabrication industry group. And just wanted to show it. It's a little shy of our liquidity requirements. BILI, a Chinese company, setting up in a base here as the KWeb and Alibaba broke out. Just wanted to show this name. Life 360 continuing. Oracle. Let's talk about this. All right. Went into great detail about why this thing was up 41%. However, it did back off because there's some question marks. OpenAI only does about $30 billion a year in revenues, yet they've committed to $300 billion in their Stargate project. So there's a lot of questions as to where this money's going to come from. But they're in a partnership with SoftBank. There's other governments that are involved in this. And again, it doesn't start till 2027. So Oracle backed off. Really something you don't want to see, but you also don't want to chase something that gaps open 35% and ends up 41% by the close. But it ended up 25% on the week with a 455% increase in volume. And clearly, there's big changes happening at Oracle. Whether you believe this or not, earnings are accelerating and sales are accelerating. This is a massive breakout. It's going to take some time probably to set up, but I am very interested in watching this and potentially getting back into it, as I did get shaken out when it broke this 50-day moving average back here. Incidentally, this is another name that held that 65-day exponential average. But it was lagging, so I don't regret selling it, but would have loved if it didn't break the 50-day moving average and still was able to hold it in earnings. MEDP with a slight gain on the week. In the nuclear area, BWXT had a nice trend line break. So we saw some of these come back to life this week, and this is potentially actionable. Uber just setting up in this base on base pattern, looking pretty good. Oklo, nice move this week, up 18%, along with CCJ and BWXT. This is a very speculative name as they don't have any sales yet. However, it does have a 93 composite rating, and clearly business is coming to this stock. Snowflake lagging a little bit, down another 1.9%. Guidewire backing off after the earnings gap. Blackstone setting up in this cup with handle base. New name up 6.68% on the week. And this tried to break through this big cup with handle this week. Got pulled back in, but looks interesting. Okay, in the biotech area, IONS up 3%, continuing its breakout. Expedia continuing. Clack breaking out of this big consolidation. Was not able to do much, bounced off this 20-week moving average, up 6.5%. Another semiconductor equipment maker. Kind of a double bottom base here as it rallied up here, pulled back, undercut, broke those highs. So, again, good sign for the semiconductors. LEU up 8.15%. Uranium Enrichment Company looks very good too. These names, again, power-hungry data centers. That's what it's all about. Alibaba, we took positions on this in this pullback the week before last, and this really paid off and followed through nicely this week. And AVAV had earnings this week. This is another German manufacturer. After this really nice gap in the run, had a big secondary offering back here. Stock's been drifting down. Had some post-earnings follow-through day right here. Was not able to overcome that 50-day moving average, but is definitely one to keep an eye on. This is another one with triple-digit sales coming up, a couple triple-digit earnings quarters ahead. So another name you want to keep your eye on, as the government is ordering very heavily from them. So watch this long reclaim of last week's all-time highs. Not all-time highs, but weekly highs. Zillow Group down slightly. Mr. Cooper and the mortgage servicing up 3%. GE Verona, this is another name that bounced off the 65-day exponential moving average and rallied with the Oracle news. Again, I think the stock's just in a consolidation, but I do think it's a long-term leader. Baidu gapped and ran 12.57% this week. So another Chinese large cap acting extremely well in this 48-week base to keep an eye on. Coupang also broke out. So this is not a Chinese stock, but Korean stock. And that was up 12% this week. Broke out of this cup base. So definitely a name to keep an eye on. That's also a Stan Druckenmiller holding. MP Materials retook a position in this after getting stopped out the week before last, as it basically came into this 10-week and 50-day moving average. Trading tightly, another name with triple-digit earnings and sales coming up. Again, I love to focus on that stuff. CrowdStrike bouncing off that 200-day moving average, but still not actionable. Celsius, which got hit last week on news that Elliott Management is seeking stakes in Pepsi's board and wants them to cut back on their external holdings. So the stock broke the 21-day moving average on Monday on that news and reclaimed it by the end of the week. So this is another name, triple-digit sales and some triple-digit earnings and solid earnings coming up, a name that I'm currently watching. I did try it and got stopped out of it on Friday of last week and the rest on Monday of this week. AAOI, talked about that in this fiber optic area, along with light. Again, that had a nice pocket pivot on Wednesday. Tempus AI, congratulations to Turbo, which took a position in this the week before last and followed through very nicely this week. This was another contributor to Turbo's 6.8% gain this week. And again, this is not a company making money yet, but rapid growth in sales, sequential growth, as well as AI in the healthcare area. There was big news on this. I think the FDA approved one of their cardiac technologies this week. So that's really what sent this flying on Thursday. So definitely a name to keep an eye on. Rocket Lab, the big day on Friday, breakout. Relative strength blue dot, cup with handle breakout. So very strong there. Nyland Pharmaceuticals, nice gain there. American Eagles with that earnings gap backing off 2.5%. Ulti Group with pullback again. We talked about that core and main news, as well as a little bit of a rebound in interest rates potentially, but still riding that ADMA. So we're very bullish on this group. Quadruple U, the U.S. uranium producer, up 3.2% on the week, looking very good. Somewhat of a high tight flag formation here, right? And high tight flag is like a 90 to 120% move. A little bit choppy. I wouldn't say that's by any means a perfect high tight flag, but looking very good. Tesla, we talked about that. Beautiful breakout of that consolidation this week. Terra will follow through along with IREN. So we saw Nebus, IONQ in the quantum area. These stocks broke out of some pretty fat bases this week. New all-time highs on IONQ. Not making money, but this is definitely an area had huge volume on Friday. So a few of these names popped up. DR Horton in the home builders has a little back off, down 2% this week. RGTI, another quantum name, up 26% on the week. Hinge Health, setting up into this nice little base, up 4.65%. And this is another AI physical therapy stock that I'm watching very closely as it broke through that consolidation this week, but then backed off on Friday. It's been a choppy stock, so this would be a smaller position, but Again, I kind of like the technology here. Nebus with a huge breakout on the Microsoft news this week, up 38%. Again, that was that gap on the Microsoft news. Another data center name. Unity Software backed off. CoreWeave. This is a stock that NVIDIA sells all their top chips to. Had a huge IPO move here, peaked, somewhat of a climax top. Say it's kind of had one, two, three waves down, double bottom, and a big rally on the Oracle news. So I try to position in this. On one of my more speculative accounts, I try to position right here on this double bottom. Again, this is below all its moving averages. Turned out to work very well. And then bought some on this pullback on Thursday here. Stopped out of a portion of that position intraday, but kept 2/3 of it. And I need this to get back above the 50-day moving average. Okay. But I think this is a situation. It traded record volume on Wednesday. Okay. 70 million shares. Never traded that amount of shares on Wednesday's pop. But you got downward sloping 50 days, so it's natural it gets rejected, needs to reset up. This needs a lot of tightness, but I was definitely speculating more on this game. BMNR, this is the Ethereum miner. This had a nice day on Friday with the move in Ethereum. And that is it for the watch list. Again, my name is Todd Thomas. If you have any questions, you can email me at todd@revereasset.com. My Twitter handle is at ToddMichael70. If you'd like to become a client, give us a call at 855-REAL-WEALTH and ask for Don or Dan. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channels as well as our Twitter handles. And have a very nice weekend and ride the wave.